Call meeting to order at 12:15 on August 6th. And we need to do the roll call.
Board Member Yankovic.
Here.
Board Member Doyle.
Here.
Board Member Howe.
Here.
Board Member Larkin.
Present.
Board Member McClure.
Here.
Board Member Springer.
Here.
Board Members Catlin and Monick are absent. And Chair Reagan.
Here. And we need to approve the agenda as presented.
We're going to excuse the absences first.
Okay, we need a motion to excuse Dean and Shelley.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mike Springer, is there a second?
Sure, yes.
Okay, Cliff. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Now we can approve the agenda. We need a motion for that.
So moved.
Okay, Cliff, is there a second?
Second.
April. And any changes or discussion on the agenda? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And approve the minutes from the previous meeting for May 7th.
I'll make the motion.
Springer, is there a
Support.
second? Cliff?
Sure.
And is there discussion? Corrections noted? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the treasurer's report.
Okay, we're in a new fiscal year. Summer tax bills have gone out. So far, we've collected $40,000 in TIFA revenue. As you can see, our beginning balance is $412,000. So we started this fiscal year with a large cash balance. We've collected $40,000 in TIFA, and our ending balance is $442,668.03.
Any questions for Sue? And so this is like the first month of the new budget, then it started?
Correct.
June?
This $40,000.
July 1?
Yes.
Okay.
This is from July 1 to July 15.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Brian, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, public comments for items not on the agenda. State your name, your business. If not, we'll move on to old business. Downtown development plan. Mark, can you update on that?
There is no update on that. Most of my DDA time has been spent on a few other projects.
Okay. South Monroe parking lot, any update on that?
A lot of updates on that.
Okay.
First of all, I have that I'm going to pass out to you proposed plans for the parking lot, and I'm going to be looking for your approval to move forward to have the engineer prepare bid documents, and there's still some items that will need to be done after that, which I'm going to tell you about, but I'm pretty excited. We've got a parking lot designed and ready to go, and ready to move forward with construction, and hopefully have it done by the end of this year. I wanted to do a little bit of history with you, Sue, if you wouldn't mind switching over to me. But I wanted to go through a little bit of a history of what got us to this point. Maybe more for the public's benefit, but also maybe a little bit of a refresher for the DDA members. Recall that several years ago, we are here having this discussion only because the door was opened during a conversation I was having with a property owner who was talking with another property owner about selling some property. And that was Brent and Jeff were having a discussion about Brent selling to him the building behind Lowell Granite. And I had heard that there may be, if Jeff were to secure that property, he may have some interest in selling the property behind the old Moose building. And so I contacted Jeff and determined that actually was true. Was able to insert the city into the process of that property sale between Brent and Jeff. And at the time, we were talking about the entire parcel behind Lowell Granite and the entire parcel behind the Moose building in a three-way transfer that would occur. In the course of those discussions, Brent, and you're familiar with these parcels A, B, C, D, Brent did not want to sell the entire corner behind Lowell Granite. He wanted to maintain at least parcel D, but did want to sell the building and looked at splitting that off. And Jeff was still interested in at least the building, but was unwilling, without the extra space, to be able to have the ramp for his stones and stuff, was unwilling to sell the entire parcel. And so I said, well, will you sell part of it? I mean, can we at least obtain part of it so we could move forward and start to look at additional parking? And he said yes, and so we worked out an agreement, a three-way agreement, and we were able to do the property transfers. And that really opened the door for us to even have the discussion that we're having today. The next step was that parcel B is owned by King Milling, and so we approached King Milling and had a discussion with them about whether or not we could lease that parcel with them to construct a parking lot. And King Milling being the great neighbor that they always are, agreed to enter into a lease with us with the city for that parcel of property. It should be noted that there's another lease for the veterans lot and some of the streets around there that's been in existence for many, many years. And so we appreciate the work we've done to do and the collaboration that we have with King Milling in order to open these areas up for public use. So that lease was executed, and then we really tried to go back and secure the rest of parcel C, work out something in a swap between C and D, and the owners, the two property owners, were either unwilling or unable, and we spent quite a bit of time working on that part of it. And what started to come to light was that there was a concern by Jeff that on parcel D that there may be a railroad easement there, and he was not interested in that parcel of property with the existence of a railroad easement. It was at about that point in time where Mr. Canfield was purchasing the Moose building and indicated some interest in rehabbing the Moose building, and had indicated that there was a couple of individuals interested in opening a restaurant in that building, and there would be a need for parking. At that point in time, we said, if this parcel CD swap is going to happen, maybe it needs to happen between the private owners first, and then the city certainly would be interested in parcel C and purchasing parcel C, but maybe this private swap needs to occur. Their discussion then in September of 2014 occurred between Mr. Slagle and Mr. Canfield on the purchase of parcel D. In October, we reviewed an overlay, a draft, sort of a sketch of a parking lot had been presented to you, and we started looking at it at an overlay. And one of the concerns that I had to watch out for is we have an arbor board, and the city is a tree city, and so we had to have some discussion about the trees behind there, what happens there. There's also a concern about the drainage in the back, like along parcel B, and what's going to happen in that area. At the same time, parcel D needed to be rezoned in order for the split to occur, in order for a sale to occur. So the Planning Commission set a public hearing in November of 2014. In December of 2014, they held a public hearing, and rezoning on parcel D occurred. In January of 2015, we had been doing some title work on the alley, because you see that there's an alley behind that row of buildings on the 200 block of Main Street. So we were doing title search, and we were getting conflicting information about whether or not that was actually an alley. And we also did some staff research on that alley, in that alley area, and we were getting conflicting information as well. I also, at the time in January, had the city attorney research the process for vacating the alley, and he did that and got back to us. And the purchase of parcel D between Slagle and Canfield was completed also in January. At that time, we were told that there was no railroad easement on parcel D. And we also met with King Milling and had further discussion with them about the proposed parking lot, because one of the conditions of the lease is that if we're going to construct something, that we do need to get their approval to construct something on their property, which seems reasonable. In the meantime, the city council approved a liquor license for Main Street Barbecue, and I then had sent notice to the public works director and the city engineer to begin discussion on the design of utilities, because we've got utility work, which I'm going to get to, but we've got a lot of utility work that would have to occur as a part of this, and that we should begin moving forward. In February of 2015, we found that there is an easement on parcel D, and we were told that additional property acquisition would not be possible with the existing railroad easement on parcel D. The city began attempts to identify contacts for the railroad company to try to help the private property owners work on that railroad easement with the railroad company. In the meantime, in February, we made a decision to determine the feasibility of constructing the utilities and putting together a phased parking lot, which could be done without acquiring parcel C. In March of 2015, we continued our attempts to contact the railroad to discuss the easement. The Planning Commission approved a site plan for the restaurant, the Moose Building, the old Moose Building. We continued our research on the feasibility of the utility work without additional property acquisition. In April of 2015, the city engineer provided utility separation requirements for our review, and I'll get into some details of those as you would like to, but I will put up on the screen this and talk with you a little bit about it. Recall that there was a request that there be a 20-foot separation behind the buildings, and we then had to, with that request to create that 20-foot separation, we had to take a look at where the existing utilities were and where we would move them to. The existing water, now, does everybody see what I'm looking at here? Here's the building face. This is sort of a cross section. This is sort of the finished elevation, and then this is 8 foot, 11 foot, 16, 22, and 32 feet away from the building. And then these are depths. Here's where the existing water is. Here's where the existing storm sewer is. In order to meet, we first determined that we didn't think we could meet that 20-foot separation, but we thought we might be able to meet a 16-foot separation. And so the new water main is drawn in, meeting and remember, we have utility requirements from the DEQ. We're going to have to apply for permits. The DEQ will have to sign off on where we locate utilities. So here's where the potential new water main would be, excuse me, and then here's where a new sanitary sewer would have to be located. We then in May did have successful contact with the railroad to discuss the parcel D easements. We researched and gathered property information that was needed by the railroad to begin that discussion on the easements. And we also started to review internally this utility separation issue and what may or may not be feasible. One of the challenges, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but one of the things that we found out is that with a sanitary sewer, you need an easement on a certain area on both sides of that sewer line so that you are able to work on the utility line. And that's not necessarily an ownership. You don't necessarily have to own the property, but you do need an easement so that you can drive on it or dig dirt up or disturb the ground. And in that case, that easement that would be required in order to meet these separation or meet these distances would be required of Lowell Granite in order to fit the utilities down the alleyway and in between this 16-foot separation we're looking for and the property that's owned by Lowell Granite. In June of 15, we forwarded the documents that were needed by the railroad for the easement consideration. We completed soil borings for the parking lot so that the engineer could begin the design plans. The actual report was issued in July to the engineers. And then the city engineer began developing draft plans for the utilities and the parking lot in June. In July, final survey work needed to be completed in order for the plans to be developed. And in July, the city engineer completed draft plans for utilities in the parking lot. I met with the engineer in July to review those draft plans. What you have before you is following our meeting. We tweaked a couple of things, and I can share that with you. And that brings us to, also the city engineer met with King Milling to talk about the draft plans. And then that gets us to today, where we have plans available to you and are proposing that we move forward.
Any questions for Mark?
So again, what you're looking at, there will be extra copies if anybody in the audience wants these. What you're looking at is, again, a phased parking lot. It would create, I believe I counted 36 spaces initially, and I think it'll result in 55 spaces once the phase 2 portion would be completed. There is not a lot of detail on the utilities, but it's important that you know that there is a lot of utility work that would have to occur in this area. And I haven't even talked about the electrical side of things, but there's some electrical boxes that would need to be moved, and we've had some initial discussions with Lowell and Power, and we've been working with them on what those needs might be as well. The plans as you see them do maintain that 16-foot separation. They have a little bit of a green space and coming from the back of the buildings, and then some walking space. There are required ADA or handicap accessibility spaces that would be required. I should note to you, I'm looking at the trees. The islands and trees are required as part of our zoning ordinance, and we will need to go to the planning commission, and we're looking at whether or not we can, if we are meeting requirements of the ordinance, can we approve this administratively? And if we can, then we'll approve it administratively. Otherwise, we'll have to take a site plan planning commission. But I think those things can be done concurrently as we're working on the construction side or preparing for the construction side. One of the things I did request, as you'll see, the dumpster enclosure area toward the back. Originally, it was designed to be in the front area where it is right now, but I asked that it be more toward the back, and I've actually had a discussion with the restaurant owner about it being a little bit farther away, and that seemed to be okay and seemed to be acceptable. But let's get those dumpsters a little bit farther back so people are walking by them before they go to eat. Other than that, some initial estimates, construction estimates that I have for the parking lot only are $58,000 with construction and construction contingencies. That includes landscaping and conduits for the lighting, but not the lighting. And I assume we're going to put light poles back there consistent with what we've done in some of the other areas. So we'll have to look at and get prices for those light poles as well. The water main, you've indicated some interest in participating in utility So that's separated out, but the water main portion, that would be a 6-inch loop connecting from Monroe, running through the alley, going through the Veterans parking lot, and then connecting to Main Street. And that's a water main that's needed for that area for increased fire flow protection. I'm trying to recall, maybe Dave can help me. Is it part of our reliability study?
The loop is shown in the reliability study. This area is currently served, those buildings are all served with a 2-inch single 2-inch water service.
I'm either going to have to repeat what you say. I might have to put you on the spot and ask you to come to the mic. But it is currently included in the reliability study, and it's served with a 2-inch, and we would increase it to a 6-inch, which would increase the flow in that area. Estimate on that is about $50,000 for that. The sanitary sewer, in order to avoid the easement, and this still has to be permitted, and we won't know whether or not we would be granted this exception until we actually apply for the permit, but we would need to, remember I showed you that distance that's required. We can bring the sanitary sewer closer to the water main, but we would have to increase the strength of the pipe. And so we've planned on that. That's included in this estimate, and the sanitary sewer project would be about $20,000. I don't have an estimate on the electrical side, but as I said, we're working with Lowell Light and Power, and we should be able to get an estimate on what that might be as well. But I will say that if you are interested in funding the utility portions of the project, that I would ask that you fund the light and power portion of the project as well. And we'd be consistent on that, at least at a local level. Not sure where we're at on gas and what would the other one be? Cable, if there's any cable there. But we certainly will work with those companies to have them make any modifications that will be required. So those are the estimates, and as I said, moving forward, we still would need to secure city council approval for the project. I would plan on having that on the next agenda for the city council meeting if you give the okay on the funding side of things. We still would need to prepare bid documents and put it out for bid. The other thing that I think is key and is essential is we need to sit down with the business owners, and we need to talk with them. I've had some initial discussion with the restaurant owner about the scope and size of this project and what that may have, what that may do to the business, especially if they're looking at opening, which now looks like September. Originally, I think it might have been June or something like that. But anyway, I think we need to sit down with all the business owners in that block at once and go through these plans and go through what the schedule might be and get some feedback from them on the potential impact, because it is a project. It is a construction project. We think it's going to take 30 days to construct it. We think that we can have it done this year, but we are heading into a very busy season for merchants and for restaurants, even if they aren't open. And so we want to get input and feedback from them before we proceed too far.
You think you can get all that done in 30 days?
That's what I'm told. That would be once we have the bids, we've secured the bids and all that, but yeah.
So is there ever a chance we're going to get the button factory? The button building?
I think there is. I think it's just going to take a little more time. There's a willingness on the part of the property owners. It's just a matter of the railroad easement. And I was fortunate enough to be able to make contact with actually the individual through my work on trails. I didn't have direct involvement in securing the railroad property for the trails that go to Saranac and up to Belding. but I was sort of peripherally involved and actually met the gentleman that was involved with the railroad on that, and finally was able to get a hold of him. He is the person that we would be working with. So I've got a great contact there. Railroads move very slowly in terms of land issues, but I did get a very positive response in terms of working with us and made the case that I just don't know why the railroad would be interested in this small sliver of property, especially an easement there, and I don't ever see them putting tracks there again.
Well, they'd have to buy more easements.
Yeah, more property. I think the DDA purchased the property on one side and the easement's been purchased on the other side. So it really is a sort of an easement that exists in the middle of nowhere. And I think we just need to show them that. And
So it could be 6 months, a year and a half, or never.
you know, I'm finding that I am not going to guess at time schedules any longer until I have a much better handle on them. So I don't know how long it'll take. But we'll certainly move forward diligently to get it done.
That's great. I didn't think this was going to happen this year. I think the last time we were talking, it was going to happen. That's really good. If you get council approval, then you can start right away.
Yeah.
That
Is that the money?
the alley,
Right.
does that get, when you were talking about that alley, does that get solved? Who owns what?
It's not solved, in my view. It's an issue that doesn't necessarily have to hold up the parking lot. Let me also take you back to I think the beginning of this year. Remember, I put together a timeline of the tasks that needed to be completed, and a part of that included vacating the alley and property transfers and all of that. And as we were finding problems with the alley and issues with the alley, I started to say, can we just keep moving forward anyway? How do we wind our way through this puzzle to try to get to what we really want, which is parking? And the items, since I've presented this, I think I presented this to you in February, that have been completed are the items in red. And you can see that we kind of jumped past the vacating the alley and the sale of city property and all of that, and the purchase of parcel C. Kind of jumped past all of that to move forward on the parking. And I think we can do that without vacating the alley, but I think we need to continue to have discussion with property owners about what that means, whether we're really technically vacating an alley. We may, because there's some discrepancies with it, we may have to go through a quiet title process, which would be going to the circuit court and basically saying to the circuit court, the records are unclear, this is what we want to happen, and then the circuit court would say, okay, so-and-so owns this piece of property, so-and-so owns this, and so-and-so owns this, and they make it so the circuit court has the ability to wave their magic wand in that way, and that may be a process that we have to go through. But I don't see how that would hold us up in terms of moving forward with the parking lot.
What you're talking about with the circuit court is extending the property back? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Like 16 feet?
So that it would leave a total of 16 feet from the back of the buildings.
Okay.
And I don't know where, I mean, I've been told it's maybe the property line is like 7 feet off the back of the building. I mean, if you will measure the curbs, that might be the case, but you can't always measure infrastructure. For example, the school building, the Unity School Building is built in, part of it is on a city street. So you really need to survey things and figure out where actual lines. But we've been working off from this idea that we would leave 16 feet off from the back of the buildings, and whatever that makes the survey lines turn out to be is what makes it turn out to be.
But you're closing that alley off. From what it looks like on the pictures, that curb goes all the way from the parking lot. So it wouldn't be a drive-through.
There would no longer be an alley there yet. Once all is said and done, there would no longer be an alley there. Correct. And we've talked with a restaurant owner about a big part of their business is going to be takeout. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't sign some of those upfront parking spaces as maybe 15-minute or something like that to be able to accommodate that takeout business and keep some of those front spots open.
Well, yeah, because we have a lot of older clients that park in that alley that aren't, they don't have the handicap stickers, but they're older and park there. So then they're going to be parking way in back.
Hopefully the employees park in the back and then those front areas are left for.
Well, we don't even park there, but it's just, I'm thinking about our older clients that like to park right there and.
Hopefully phase 2 is completed and we have an additional row of parking spots where they would have a front spot to be able to park in.
And then, like ours, and I know Judy and them next to us, we all have trash. That we have our own separate ones that the trucks come down there. So we got to figure out where that's going to go too.
Yeah.
That's why he said he needed to meet with.
We need to sit down with building
Yeah.
owners and
They share trash in this block?
yes. Many of the other areas share trash, they share dumpsters, and we can, if need be, I think it's, I'd have to talk to the engineer, but we may be able to enlarge the dumpster enclosure if we needed to, depending on what the trash needs are.
Yeah, because the restaurant's probably going to need their own.
Plus, I don't know if we're going to have grease or not. Yeah, so they'll need a grease catcher too.
Do you guys, what kind of volume of trash? Lots?
Yeah, it's full every week because now we have our orders and we have tons of cardboard.
Yeah.
Well, we share, we have cardboard and a regular, and we all share it. You share it too. We all chip in.
Yeah, we could do that.
And if it didn't accommodate it, then you'd have 2 dumps a week, or 3, or whatever you need.
I used to pitch in the moose.
Jeff takes care of it.
I take my trash home now, because I don't have that much, but I used to put it in the moose dumpster, because we had an arrangement, and that's gone, so we can work something out.
I'm sorry. The other issue that's hanging out there too, I just so you know, that's more of an immediate issue is the building that the city owns in the Black Building. We've had discussion internally about how much time would it take for us to tear that down, and we could have it down in half a day. Before we even began construction, in the parking lot, I think we could have it down, and I've committed to that. The Boy Scouts are currently storing, I thought it was just a trailer, but it turns out to be 3 trailers and some canoes and some tubs of things, so they have quite a bit in there. And I had committed to them that, I would give them some notice, maybe even 30 days before they would actually have to move stuff out. We've been trying to get a hold of them, and we'll certainly see them. They'll be parking at the fair, so we'll certainly see them if they don't return their calls next week. But we've had offers, even Light and Power has offered to store their stuff on a temporary basis until they find a permanent location. So, the building really is of very little concern to me. I think it can be done in a very quick fashion. The bigger concern to me is the 30-day construction window and how that impacts the businesses. And I really want to have a discussion with businesses about that. That really is a larger issue to me than the small little block building that can be gone in a half a day.
Anything else? Greg, did you want to?
Yeah, address a couple of April's concerns. I think that it would make sense to share the dumpster. In fact, Cliff, I told you all we have a construction dumpster there. You guys are welcome to use that, but you guys are just setting out a 30-gallon trash can once a week. It's really minimal. It might be a little further away, but eventually the back of this building becomes the front of it with a nice parking lot. Your parking concerns, the last I heard, it got pushed back a year now, but we're looking at restoring parking in front of the building, which would be equal to about what would be lost should there be a change in the back. But that still needs to be determined. I understand that This process takes time. When we started talking about this, we were saying something would happen last year before the end of the year. I don't think it's realistic to think that anything will happen this year. There's too many hurdles to jump through. We're already into August. Everybody is swamped. You can't even get anybody to give you bids on stuff now because of that. So we're looking at next year. I've been talking with Mark about the building, the garage back there. 60 days ago, 30 days ago, I went to Monday night's council meeting and heard that we need to give them 30 days notice. Originally, the restaurant was scheduled to open on July 1st, or August 1st, I'm sorry, which we didn't make. September 1st is a pretty realistic window for us to be open. If we haven't even given them 30 days notice, once they open, that parking lot is going to be full of cars everywhere they're at. And it's going to be a lot more difficult to tear that building down at that point. I really feel that we're letting the restaurant owners down by not having that done before. We've had a lot of time to talk about this. If it's a half a day job, they should have been given their notice. That thing should be gone. And I think that it wouldn't cost a lot of money to bring in 3 or 4 inches of asphalt millings and make a temporary parking lot until something happens next year, because when you look at what the Flat River Grill has brought to town and the amount of traffic, this is going to equal or exceed that, and parking is going to be a problem. I mean, we're approved already to open with the parking that's there within 300 feet or whatever the site plan review required. But it's going to put a burden on other businesses because there's going to be a lot of cars here. And if we can get their stuff out of there in less than 30 days, that garage, needs to be out of there before they open. I think the city needs to find a way to make that happen. Thank you.
You feel that you can do it this year?
Parking? Yeah.
The parking lot?
Yeah.
Would it be better for the grand opening or whatever to do a temporary and wait till next year?
Well, obviously, I would say yes to that, but,
You really should come, I'm sorry, but you should come to the podium.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're taping the meeting and
it's
people.
usually Aaron's role, coming up here and doing this stuff, but I'll help out there. Obviously, we're shooting for September 1st. We're trying to do a soft opening first week, or the last week of August. That would be pretty much invite only, just to test out our process and everything, so parking would be a big issue that week. But once we do launch mid first week of September, we expect a lot of people, just because of the buzz going around, the anticipation. How long that extends out, we'll see. But if we could get that ready by that week, that would be tremendously helpful for us and for everybody else around, I'm sure, because it could be a problem in terms of what Craig said, in terms of just the amount of influx of cars and things such as that. It could affect the other businesses that are used to having parking available and things such as that. So I think it'd be better for everybody involved until we smooth out some processes and people get used to the newness of it. So sooner the better. If we do something temporary, it'd be great. To answer your question.
Thanks very much.
Well, the question is, can it be done by October? If it can't, then you're going to wait till next year. You're not going to get anybody to get it done. So do you do it temporary so he can open and have parking and then get out of next spring?
And that's, again, I'm going back to the discussion with the business owners about what would you like to see happen? We've always been sort of geared toward this kind of schedule. As I told you in the outline, there's a lot that has to happen. Little things behind the scenes like soil borings and surveys and all that kind of stuff. And then the utility question was really a tough one to try to figure out in that limited space, and we're still right on the edge. So there's a lot that is going to go into this project and a lot of prep work to go into it.
You still don't have your permits, right?
Well, and we still don't have our permits. We still
So
have to
those
apply
would
for
take 60
permits.
days?
They would have to answer that 3 weeks, 30 days on the permits. But we can still move forward with bidding and that kind of stuff.
So it would be probably better to wait till next spring and do a better job, slow down on it, and do something temporary. Do you think by September 1st you have that building knocked down and maybe a temporary parking lot?
I don't know if we could have the temporary parking lot in. I'd have to talk with Ron Woods about that and get an idea how quickly we could, if we were going to have that route, if we were going to put asphalt millings in or whatever we're going to do there. But the building being knocked down is just not that big of a deal.
Well, why do you have to give them 30 days? Why can't you just give them like 2 weeks?
And we had committed that we would give them a month's notice, but I've been talking with them since winter about it happening. In fact, I got a phone call, in, I don't know, I'm going to say January, February, about, well, I'm going to have to move my building pretty soon. And I said, yeah. I said, right now I'm hearing that the restaurant opening is going to be June and July, so, maybe not much before then, but yeah, you're going to have to start thinking about it. And then, roughly May, June, I think I said, it's not going to be June, July, but it may be the end of the summer, and so keep thinking about it. So.
Well, isn't that their notice right there? You told them how many times?
It could be, and I mean, the thing is, we did a nice thing for the Boy Scouts. Let's not let that go unnoticed here. They were looking for a place to store some of their stuff. We purchased some property that could be turned into a parking lot. Had a building just sitting there, and we said to them, hey, don't store your stuff here, you can store it here. And, we told them we'd give them, some notice before we got rid of it. But, and like I said, we've had offers on places. I'll put the stuff in my pole barn. The mayor has said you can park the trailers in my driveway if you'd like to. Light and Power has said we have space. So it just is not going to be a big deal to find a location for the Boy Scout stuff. I mean, like I said, even if the restaurant were open a half a day, I don't know that Main Street Barbecue is going to be open for breakfast. A half a day we could have it knocked down and ready by lunchtime. So the building is a small issue. The parking lot and the timing of that construction is a huge issue. And again, that's where I really want to sit down and talk with the business owners and talk with them about that impact. And if they say, put something up temporary and put it off until spring, that's okay. I mean, I think that's okay with any of us, isn't it?
I hate to rush something, you did such a great job doing all that planning and stuff.
We got it planned and we can still bid it. We can still bid it this fall and have it ready to go in the spring, and hopefully we don't get a flood. You never know. This is construction. I mean, Greg's run into that with just getting the building ready. You have little things that just happen during construction. We're working on our basement right now, and you have little things that happen. You just have to go with the flow.
Do either of those gentlemen have an idea how much it would cost to do a temporary parking lot surface? Or what you're talking about, crushed asphalt, or I mean, is that a $10,000 thing, or is it a $30,000 thing, or is it a
$5?
Oh,
Yeah. They said for the public, they said 5.
okay.
So it's easily an under $10,000 thing. I mean, it's not.
I have a stupid question. Can that be striped?
The crushing is
Okay.
That's an interesting idea.
Well, the only reason I ask is because people use that parking lot now, like on Thursday tonight for the concert. You'll walk back there,
They're all over.
people are people, and it's like, if you park this way, more of you could fit, but
If we had enough volunteers, we might be able to get out there with crushed concrete and crushed asphalt, kind of, create the lines with crushed concrete.
speaking as a business owner on that block, I was kind of taken by surprise today that, and I guess it's probably my fault, I didn't understand that the alley would be closing. I think that's probably going to be something that, like Nancy and the other owners are going to want to chew on a second. Not that it's the end of the world, but I don't think any of us were expecting that. And my point being that maybe some type of a quick temporary fix that would put off the closing of the alley and all that until next spring. I mean, it really doesn't affect my business. I'm a onesie, twosie customer, so I don't really care, but I'm just thinking, you know, Nancy, I stopped in looking for April at the salon, and Nancy said, whatever they want to do, I want the parking lot, I want the parking lot. But I don't think she knows we're talking about closing the alley. And my point is that, you know, that's going to maybe change the discussion a little bit. But if we could do something temporary for $5,000 or something, get the building out of the way, flatten it, and have at least a semi-nice surface to park on.
But what about deliveries too? I mean, I'm thinking on that because obviously with Joe's, they're gonna want to go to the back door. We have our UPS guy that comes every other week.
And these are all those discussions that, you know, we could do that at the DDA meeting and sit here for a few hours and do that, but we don't have the right people at the table to have those discussions. We really need to get the property owners and the business owners together and throw all those things on the table and come to some mutual resolution on it. Because there are a lot of what ifs. We can spend a lot of time here doing that. But
Should we make, or should a motion be made to offer so much money in case?
We should look at temporary asphalt parking lot.
So I'd like up to 10,000, it won't be that much. Can I make that motion?
I'd be looking for a couple of motions today. One would be the temporary, and the other would be to authorize funding. I mean, I can have more concrete numbers once we have bids and stuff for you, but to authorize a certain amount for the project as a whole too. If I could have both of those motions, that gets us moving forward.
And what's available? How much money is available?
You are in a, now I'm going to do this off the top of my head, but you're in a new budget year and you have 150, I believe, set aside for capital improvements this year in cash.
You're talking 120 here, 130 almost.
130.
Plus 30, plus 5.
Yeah, plus whatever there is for light and power, and then that.
I have a question about the whole thing.
How can you do it?
Yeah.
Isn't that alley, aren't all those businesses on there anymore? I mean, I don't know what light and power has to do for the building.
There are boxes that need to be moved. I don't know about any of the other details. I'd have to get that from Tom Russo, or Greg may know, but I don't think it's a ton of electrical work, but there is some electrical work that would have to occur.
I thought it was all pretty new when we did that parking lot, the alley.
I'd be speaking out of turn if I went into too much detail. All I know are the boxes.
What was the question, Mike?
About the electrical behind those buildings. It's all underground, isn't it, now?
I believe they're going to upgrade a transformer, but I believe that the lines that come from the transformer near the garbage dumpster are of adequate size. It's just a question of if some additional property is deeded, granted to the property owners, could those stay on that private property? I don't think, nobody really wants to own the property behind it. We've talked about it a little bit, but similar to what the Flat River Grill does, where they get a little property from the city, just allows a little room to do something behind the building. It doesn't have to be an ownership. If it helps to leave utilities there, that's a fine thing. Doesn't matter. We were just hoping to get a little bit of room to possibly put like a couple posts down for a balcony on the second and third floor of the building we're at, and possibly other buildings. It's an unusual situation with zero lot lines. It doesn't allow for much development. And if we're reworking things, that was something that I had talked about with some of the other property owners about additional property. But it also sounds to me like we have building owners on the same block that are concerned about the alley being closed. We've kind of designed this parking lot without talking to anybody. Maybe we need to think you're putting something out for bids that we're not sure we even like. So maybe we're getting the cart before the horse there. That may be why a temporary thing and put it off till spring till we can design a little better, get everybody's input on it. Just a thought.
Not to beat a dead horse, but I think I said one of the next steps is that we need to sit down with the business owners.
Right.
Yeah, but you want us to approve a bid for it so we can do the bidding and that, but you haven't even talked to everybody yet. so that should have been done before.
Well, I think we're just looking to approve the concept, nothing, no concrete numbers are gonna be out there at all, so he's gonna be talking to the business owner. Mike, you were gonna make a motion to approve the temporary lot,
If
Yeah,
that's the
tear down,
direction we're going.
okay?
Yes.
And to the tune of,
A number came out at 5,000, if we want to say up to, because we're not going to be meeting prior to,
right,
so we should have it, I don't know, it's
tear down the building and
tear down the building and
put the
temporary
temporary lot,
lot.
so let's say 10,000.
Up to 10,000.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then, again, Mark, the concept, I'm excited about seeing all the parking lot, and, this is maybe just the initial drawing. We need to get some firm numbers on to, maybe formally, I'd like to maybe, encourage, a resolution or something to approve, continuing to pursue this. Unless you need a formal motion with a monetary commitment.
I'd like to know that, I'd like to be able to go to the city council and say the DDA has agreed to pay for this project, and I would like to know whether or not you're interested in paying for the utility portions of the project.
I think we've done that in other, all the other ones up to the building and then the owners.
Right.
Well, this was more water and stuff, water mains.
Yeah, the others more electric, but,
Well, the water thing is kind of a safety issue, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you couldn't put in fire suppression with a 2-inch hose. I mean, can you?
so anybody want to make that motion?
Verify the motion.
Yeah.
The motion's to approve up to, to include utilities, water, sanitary sewer, and we don't have any numbers on the electric, light, and power, or the gas, or the cable, if they had that in there. 6-inch
Would you
main.
have a ballpark? Not that you're gonna be held to it, but are you talking $5,000 or $10,000
Well,
or?
the numbers that he had earlier, I have a total of about 120.
128 is.
Right, but I
what
meant
gave you.
the light fixture, you said that includes running conduit but not light poles.
Right.
So the light poles are gonna be,
If you're gonna ask me to just throw a swag on the table, I'm gonna say it's a total of 200.
okay.
Okay, we got 150.
If you're gonna make it a
minutes, right?
swag, that would be,
If we approve up to
That's
a
with
certain
really
level,
nice light poles.
is there money somewhere else?
well,
to
we've
finish
got,
it?
yes, you mean in terms of the 150 that's in the budget, and that, yeah, you have cash available that you did not spend last year. So you still have money available to be able to spend on this project. Even though you would technically go over budget for this year, you have enough in reserves to be able to complete it.
Yeah, that's not what I asked.
Oh, I'm sorry, what'd you ask?
Is there money elsewhere outside the DDA to finish the job if we say,
There's not for the parking lot. The water fund can pay for the water project, and the sewer fund could pay for the water project. I've not talked to Lake Lowell about what they could do on their end, and I don't even know what that cost is. But the water and sewer funds can pay for those projects.
Well,
which is part
And the
of,
water fund isn't planned on that project.
well,
which is part of, the big part of this?
Yes,
Was
the
those.
water and sewer is 70,000, right?
correct.
And they can pay for that?
Mhm.
So then if we approved 130 or 150, if they picked up the water and sewer, then we should be golden?
Yeah.
And I would go to the 150 in case there's something else we want to spend on. If we're putting all our.
Yeah, well, if the parking lot's
20,
58,
yeah,
yeah.
20.
because then we've already spent another 10, so that's
There you go.
130.
And then if they need more, they can come back or.
Why don't we go 100?
But they got those other sources.
What about 100,000?
That's why I'm in there.
Well, I mean, if,
Yeah.
if the parking lot's 58 and lighting will be a little bit more, and if we said 100, would that give you enough to carry to the city council?
You're asking me to swag it, but yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
if we commit for 100,000, that's,
Here you go.
That gets us rolling.
Because we've already.
Is that motion?
It's 110 at this one price.
okay, 110.
No, we already gave it.
Ah. Okay, how about a motion to approve $100,000 towards this parking lot?
I'll second that.
Okay, Cliff made a motion, and Mike was second. Is there a second? Mike Springer made a second, and any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Just want to thank you for all the work you've done on this, Mark, and it's not done yet. Okay.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Talk to the railroad.
New business, Christmas decoration agreement. Liz, you got a quote for the Christmas decorations?
Who's president of the city?
I don't, what's that?
Who's president of the city?
I'm not sure who, I give up. I'm not really sure that this is our request. Usually the city DDA has always done this, it just happened to come to me this year, so. But we talked about it, we've been using this company for quite a few years. And usually the DDA signs a 3-year agreement for the Christmas decorations for downtown. And we can do that, we can sign a 3-year agreement or a 1-year agreement. They're really both the same, except that in the 3-year agreement, they put a special provisions, which says if we don't want to renew it in 2016-17, we really don't, we're not bound by this contract. The other thing you should know is we did quote them, or ask them for a quote for LED lighting, and it was, oh my gosh, like $8,000 to do LED lighting instead of what they're quoting here. And we really didn't know what the payback on something like that would be. So, you know, that's why we asked for a 1-year or a contract that we could get out of if we wanted to, you know, do a little bit more research. From my point, this company's been really great. They come, they put them up. They're like little elves in the middle of the night, and they take them down like little elves in the middle of the night and disappear. So I think it's been good, you know, for the city, and everybody enjoys this. So that's my pitch for Christmas. Like,
So the total was 43, 47, 36?
yeah, and I think, I couldn't tell you what it went up, but I don't think it went up.
It's normally
much.
42.55.
42.55, yeah. So not too bad.
And you have a promotions and marketing budget, and within that budget, you set aside $6,000 for Christmas lights.
So I guess it's really up to you what, you know, I don't know. Do you have a recommendation, Mark? 3-year, 1 year?
I think the agreement gives us the ability to pull out, and I think we ought to just do a 3-year, and
That,
if something
right,
happens and we're not happy, we just pull out.
kind of saves you from doing this every year. One,
Locks in the rate.
and it locks in.
Locks in the rate, yeah. So I'll make that motion.
Mike, or Mark made the motion? And is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mike Springer, and any further discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Reports and member comments? Anything? I'll just kind of reiterate again, thank you for all the, the history back, it's a lot of information, a lot of background on that parking lot and the transactions, and kind of excited to, see it come to fruition, and there's a lot of imposition on the businesses, but it was worth it when we went through this in 95 or 92, whenever we did that too. It'll look really nice. And for the old people getting in, I experienced that at the office too. They'll be willing to walk a little bit when it's a safer entrance in the back compared to the main street too, I think.
Can I ask if I'm understanding the way we're leaving things right now? We're going to attempt to have a temporary parking lot done by when?
First step is we're going to be contacting the business owners and setting up a meeting with them next week.
Before we even do a temporary thing?
Yeah. Because I would like to know whether or not it's feasible to move forward and get the parking lot constructed this year. And if it is feasible, we'll continue on our path. But if the business owners say, maybe we ought to put it off and do a temporary lot instead, and that would be acceptable, then we can go that route. But to me, the first step is getting the business owners together and talking with them.
Okay.
And I'd like to have that discussion before I go to city council, because I'll be going before the city council a week from Monday.
City council is when?
A week from Monday.
They got a calendar.
So for moving forward with the parking lot, I'd like to get that before the city council and have that step taken care of.
And that's still gives you enough time before September 1st?
Yeah.
So maybe see if we can get those of us on the block together next week.
That's what's going to happen. You'll be getting a phone call.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming. Next meeting, September 10th, Thursday, first Thursday of the month, after the city council meeting. Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Cliff, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by April. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Can stay here.